When my husband tried to steal my fortune, I never thought the day would come when his greed would drive him to such shameless lengths. And yet, there we were in a courtroom, my life's work on the line. People see wealth and imagine ease, luxury, and happiness, but they rarely see the battles behind it, the sacrifices made, the humiliation endured. Especially when you are a woman of color building a life in a world where every door seemed heavier, and every glance felt like judgment. I carried the weight of those struggles with quiet determination. And when success finally came, it was mine hard-earned, not a gift from anyone. Which is why his betrayal cut so deeply, and why the envelope I carried into that courtroom became the silent weapon that turned everything against him. I was born into a family that never had much. My parents worked long hours to keep food on the table, and though love was plentiful, opportunity wasn't. As a black woman in an industry dominated by men, I had to fight not only for recognition but for respect. Every time I walked into a boardroom, I felt the unspoken words hovering around me, that I didn't belong, that I wasn't worthy. But I learned to outwork, outthink, and outlast them. Slowly my business grew, brick by brick, until it became something solid, something valuable. Along the way, I thought I had chosen a partner who believed in me, who would celebrate those victories with me. Instead, I discovered that love, when tainted by envy, can curdle into something ugly. At first, the changes in him were small, almost invisible. A sharp comment when I celebrated a win. A cold silence when someone praised me. Then subtle questions about finances, about ownership, about how much was in my accounts. He would smile when others were around, but behind closed doors his bitterness seeped through. I wanted to believe it was stress or insecurity, but deep down I knew what it really was: resentment. He hadn't built it, but he wanted it. He hadn't sacrificed, but he felt entitled. When the divorce papers came, he played the victim. He spun tales of sacrifice, as if he had stood beside me at every battle, as if the success I fought for was his as much as mine. His demand was bold. Half my fortune, half of everything I had bled for, everything my parents never had a chance to dream of. And in that demand was not just greed, but a cruel dismissal of who I was and how hard it had been to rise above the barriers placed in front of me. The days leading up to court were heavy with tension. My friends urged me to fight back with lawyers, with strategy, with aggression. But I knew that if I entered that courtroom with nothing but words, his lies and charm might sway those who had already doubted me all my life. I needed something stronger, something undeniable. And so, I prepared in silence, gathering every piece of evidence that revealed the truth behind the facade he wore so well. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was thick with anticipation. He sat across from me, polished, confident, playing the role of the wronged husband. His lawyer painted him as the man who had stood by me, who had suffered as I rose, who deserved to reap the rewards of my labor. And as I listened, a part of me burned with fury, not just at his lies but at the ease with which people believed him. It felt like every boardroom, every dismissive glance, every doubt I had ever faced was playing out again. I was the woman they thought couldn't have done it alone, so surely he must be telling the truth. But when it was my turn, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. I simply reached into my bag and placed a sealed envelope into the judge's hands. For a moment, the room seemed to hold its breath. He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the documents within. And then something unexpected happened. He laughed. Not a cruel laugh, but a knowing, almost incredulous chuckle, as if the audacity of my husband's lies had finally been laid bare in the clearest possible light. Inside that envelope were bank records, communications, contracts. Undeniable proof not only that my husband had contributed nothing to my business, but that he had, in fact, been secretly draining funds from my accounts, attempting to cover his own debts and indulgences. Every shred of evidence painted him not as a victim, but as a leech, a man who had tried to disguise theft as entitlement. The laughter of the judge wasn't just at the ridiculousness of his claim, but at the sheer boldness of a man who thought he could rewrite history in his favor. For me, it was more than vindication. It was justice, a moment where all the battles I had fought against invisibility, against being underestimated, culminated in undeniable truth. The courtroom shifted that day. His lawyer stammered, scrambling for words, But the judge's tone was final, his judgment cutting through the lies with precision. My husband's demand was denied in its entirety. Worse for him, his own actions were now subject to investigation, his debts exposed, his character unmasked before the very people he had tried to deceive. The look on his face was a mixture of shock, humiliation, and rage. But beneath it all, I saw something else. The realization that he had lost far more than money. In the days that followed, whispers spread quickly. Friends who once believed his sob story began to distance themselves. Business associates who had entertained his arrogance now looked at him with disdain. And as for me, I walked away not just with my fortune intact, but with a renewed sense of power. The envelope had not just protected my wealth. It had reminded me of something I had almost forgotten in the storm of betrayal. That my story was mine to tell, not his to steal. Looking back, I realize it was never just about the money. It was about dignity, about standing firm in a world that had tried again and again to take credit for what I had achieved. My husband's attempt to rob me was not only financial, it was symbolic. A man trying to strip away the proof that I, a black woman, had built something extraordinary on my own. And that is why the judge's laughter meant so much more than victory in court. It was laughter in the face of entitlement. Laughter that cut through centuries of doubt. A small but powerful reminder that truth can still find its way to the surface. So I carry that moment with me, not as a memory of betrayal, but as a testament to resilience. Betrayal may wound, but it cannot erase the truth. And to anyone listening who has ever been underestimated, dismissed, or robbed of the recognition they deserve, I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't anger or confrontation. It's the quiet strength of evidence, the calm unveiling of truth, and the unshakable knowledge that what you've built cannot be stolen by lies. Tell me, if you were in my place, what would you have sealed inside your envelope?